Yeah, welcome back to another conference preview with the Transfer Portal CFB presented by No Context CFB. This week, it's the Power Five. We're talking about the Pac-12 today, kind of the Pac-9 now, maybe the Pac-8 tomorrow, maybe completely cannibalized in the week. Who knows? But we're here to talk about the upcoming season and what's to come in the fall of 2023 with Karan today, another Pac-12 diehard. So, yeah,
Yes,
very excited.
sir. For now.
For now, yeah. Glorified Mountain West coming soon. But the glorified Mountain West is an incredibly fun
That
conference.
sounds great to me, man. But
I mean, this is in all honesty, it stinks that this is happening to the Pac-12 this season of all seasons because it
yeah,
is stacked. It is often loaded with talent, but this year seems different. There's so many intriguing teams and just a bevy of players to get familiar and excited with. So we can't wait to talk about the bright lights of the Pac-12 for these next few months before the inevitable occurs. So, you know,
yeah.
well, what are you looking forward to this season, Karan?
I mean, as you said, this is going to be the last season of the Pac-12. May as well go with a bang. And I think every team has solid amount of talent. There's a lot of good high end talent that we'll talk about. And yeah, honestly, I just want to see the Pac-12 return to glory just one more time before the inevitable strikes, as you said.
Some are saying that they would like the Pac-12 to return to glory, maybe make the playoff and shut the haters up or something. I don't know. There's a lot of good games on schedule though. It obviously starts with non-conference play. What's the one non-conference game that you're looking forward to the most?
I think USC at Notre Dame week 7. That's gonna be a great game. They played last year, and obviously Notre Dame wasn't a great team, but coming into this year, there's a lot to look forward to about them. Sam Hartman joined them from Wake Forest, and so they're going to give USC a run for their money. I think USC lost Jordan Addison, but gained Dorian Singer through the portal and a couple other players. So I think if there's any game that USC is going to kind of prove themselves as this playoff contender that everyone's wanted them to be since they got Lincoln Riley, I think it would be against Notre Dame in week 7.
Yeah, that one is obviously always on everyone's calendars. For me,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the intriguing battle, the Tyler Shuck Bowl between Oregon and Texas Tech in week 2. I think that's a highly fascinating game for a multitude of reasons. One reason being Texas Tech's going to be a whole lot better than maybe people
Yeah.
expect for, Texas Tech to be. It's a very good test for an Oregon team that has Pac-12 championship aspirations, in addition to their entire fan base thinking that this is the year that they get to back to the playoff and Bo Nix is having fun. It's going to win the Heisman, all that fun stuff. This is going to be an incredible clash between two very talented teams. I believe Oregon's favored by 3.5 right now. That game's going to go down to the wire. It's a very good test in the early non-conference for not only Oregon, but the Pac-12 to rep the brand strong against the evil powers of the Big 12 that are being very mean to the small guy, Pac-12. In conference, though, one game you're looking forward to more than the rest.
Sticking with Oregon, I think Oregon State at Oregon. Those games are always phenomenal. And last year with the big comeback, that pretty much ended Oregon's season. Now heading into this year, Oregon State looks a lot better than they did last year. This might be an Oregon State team that can make a conference championship run, as many are saying. And Oregon, obviously a perennial contender. They have Bo Nix, who is this the year? We'll see. So I think at the end of the season, coming down to really like where we're deciding who these championship teams are going to be, I think this could decide one of the two teams in the conference championship game.
Yeah, so of the 4 games that we're highlighting here, 3 of them include the Ducks. I can't wait for Oregon at Washington
Yeah.
in week 7. Oregon Washington is always a banger. This is going to be another incredible game with massive implications because Oregon, we've obviously talked up as a team that has Pac-12 hopes, and even more than that, Washington's in the same boat. The Pac-12 is absolutely loaded, folks, and these two teams are a big reason why. Getting that rivalry in the middle of the season, this is going to be an incredible game that everyone should sit down and watch. I don't care what time zone you're in. I don't care what time this game is on. It could be at 1 p.m. Pacific. It could be at 1 a.m. Pacific. you need to watch this game. You need to see all the talent. You have Bo Nix. You've got Michael Penix Jr. dueling with him, Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan. There's just so many good players. Jordan Birch. I mean, Braylon Trice. Like the list of players in this matchup just go on and on. You have to lock in to Oregon, Washington, week 7. We'll move on to players that we're watching now. We're going to start with some breakout and sleeper picks. I'll let you go with your first guy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll have them add that out.
Yeah, sorry, my headphones just died. I should fuck that up.
Oh, you're good. Okay. I'll also have them add that out. All right, we're on to looking at some players to look at for the upcoming season. We'll start with breakout sleeper type players. Who's the first guy that you're really looking forward to watching this season?
One guy that I'm really high on is Jordan Tyson, who recently transferred to Arizona State. People didn't really pay attention to Colorado last year for good reason, but he was pretty much their entire offense. I mean, the guy was phenomenal despite rotating quarterback play, a team that wasn't very well coached. Nothing was really going well for them, but when he had the ball in his hands, he was electric. He's a good kick returner as well. I think Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham, they're going to have a lot of ways to use him. And yeah, that was a guy who, if Colorado had retained him, I was very high on him. I think he would have been probably their best offensive weapon still, even with all those transfers. But now at Arizona State, I think he's going to have a good opportunity to kind of emerge as a star receiver in the Pac-12.
Love that call. For me, the first guy I've got to nominate is Sam Jackson, the 5th. Of course, Cal's getting an electric quarterback.
Yes,
I mean, one of the best athletes in the country, regardless of position, regardless of what college sport they play. Sam Jackson, the 5th, is that dude. Talked to Jay and Odd about this guy a few months ago, and all he could say was, yeah, he's the best athlete I've ever seen, but the throws that this guy makes in practice don't even make sense. The ways that he's jumping midair, he's jumping and then throwing the ball midair and just firing an absolute missile to someone with precision. It's insane. He could dunk with incredible height and always dropping windmills. And I know that's on the basketball court, but the athleticism translates to the football field. He's going to make dudes miss all the time with his rushing ability, but his passing should not be overlooked. He's got a huge chance early on to build a lot of hype for this Cal offense. They've got North Texas, Auburn, and Idaho in their first 3 games. Some chances to really produce at a high level and get eyes on Cal.
Yeah, Jackson is very interesting because I know every time a small mobile quarterback comes around, people want to say Kyler Murray. But I really think with Sam Jackson, especially with the Jake Spavital connection, he coached both of them. It's really hard to ignore the comparisons between those two players. They're both undersized but electric athletes, arguably the best on the field at all times, and phenomenal arm talent. So I think if you're looking at a breakout quarterback, Sam Jackson's an obvious pick there.
Definitely is. How about your second guy?
I'm keeping it in Arizona, and I'm keeping it with the wide receivers. I'm going Tedariah McMillan. I don't even know if he counts as a breakout anymore. He kind of broke out last year with 700 yards and 8 touchdowns. But with Dorian Singer transferring to USC, he's going to have a much higher workload. And I think at 6'5", 205, he's one of the most intriguing athletes, not only in the Pac-12, but in the country at receiver. And I think with Arizona, their offense is obviously high-powered. They're well coached by Jed Fish. And I think he's going to have a really good opportunity to emerge as a top-end receiver, not only in the Pac-12, but even in the country, alongside Jacob Cowing.
I feel like McMillan and Cowing, too, are both just incredibly underrated players. For me, I'm going with someone else that's very underrated and underlooked right now. That's TJ Harden, running back at UCLA. Carson Steele comes in for the Bruins from Ball State, and all eyes are on Steele. You should not, overlook what TJ Harden brings to the table. In a small sample size last year, he was carving up defenses. He brings a lot. If you like Zach Charbonnet, you're going to love TJ Harden. He plays a tough physical brand of football. He wants to punch you in the mouth and then look down at you and say, yeah, I'm that guy. Get out my way. Let me go house this thing. He's going to be in for a larger workload this season. I think it's wild that people are really only expecting Steele to be the guy. Chip Kelly and his staff are going to let multiple running backs carry the ball as they always do. When Harden's getting the workload, when he's got the hot hand, you should be heavily invested in watching him play. He's also got pretty good speed. I think TJ Harden is just one of the more underrated running backs in the country when we're talking about the situation that they're in. He's an RB2 that nobody cares about because of the guy in front of him. I think that's ludicrous. TJ Harden's going to be so good this season. Please invest in him.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a couple of years ago when Charbonnet came in from Michigan and they had Dimitri Felton already, and people were kind of writing off Charbonnet, but then he ended up emerging as their top rushing option while Felton kind of found his role as a receiver more or less.
Indeed. Now with we're gonna go with some key players here. These might not be the top end names. Some maybe one or two might be, but these might not be the top end names at the end of the day. And these are more guys that we really see finding key roles for their team that can help them succeed at the highest level. I'm not going to talk about your Caleb Williams or whatever here. Karan, your first guy though is he's a star.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a guy who's a pretty big name, pretty big recruit, Travis Hunter over at Colorado. He's going to be their top receiving target. He's probably going to be their top DB. They're asking a lot of him, and he obviously last year at Jackson State he played well as a DB, but we didn't really get to see as much of him as we would have wanted to because of injury. But coming into Colorado, he's the focal point of this team, arguably. He's the best recruit in the country. He's going to come in. That DB room, it's pretty weak. It's him and Cormani McLean at corner, and I think, yeah, with Hunter, it's hard to project really because he was so great in high school. We don't really have that much film on him in college football, but if he can be a consistent DB while also being a contributing offensive player, Colorado might be in business.
Yeah, dude, like his talent is nuts because he really could be a WR1 in the NFL or a CB1.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they use him. They're kind of talking it up like unrealistically. I'd say maybe he is this like starting receiver, starting DB, just all world talent that some people think he is. But if he can at least end up being a star or high end talent at one position and a contributor in another, I think they've got a really good player with him.
So my first player is going to be DT Sheffield, wide receiver at Washington State. Think that while he might not be a household name yet, he could be this season. He's going to produce a lot in Wazoo's offense with Cam Ward. This is a Northwest Community College transfer. He's 5'10", and he's been doubted his whole life. They told him he's too small. You'll never make it at that size. You need to switch positions. He played quarterback. He's now playing receiver, and he's going to carve defenses up. I think he'll be the WR1 for Wazoo, and Cam Ward's really going to like throwing to him. He's fast, he's shifty, he's electric. Brings a lot of juice.
Yeah, I think Wazoo, they've got a couple holes to fill offensively because of transfers. He's got a great opportunity there.
How about your second guy?
Yeah, my other guy, I think it's a transfer that it went a bit under the radar, but still it was massive. Patrick McMorris, safety at Cal. They got him from San Diego State. He was one of, if not the best DB in the Mountain West these past few years. He had a phenomenal 2021 season, 4 interceptions, 53 tackles. And then last year, he followed it up. He was quite good. There's a lot to like there. Cal, they're rebuilding their offense, but their defense has always been pretty consistent. So he's going to come in and replace Daniel Scott, who went to the NFL, got drafted. And I think he's arguably an upgrade there. He's a very good player, NFL talent, and he's going to be the anchor to a Cal team that's trying to reestablish themselves as a contender in the Pac-12.
I love the McMorris call. He's a very interesting player to watch. He's just so dang good, and he's going to bring a lot of good things to Cal's defense. I'm going with Oregon State tackle Joshua Gray for my other key player, someone that should be all over NFL draft boards. He plays with a great pad level and a lot of power, and I think something that we're going to see from him is he could translate his game to guard at the next level, 6'4", 6'5" I think he's absolutely elite in the run game, and you're going to see that quite often at Oregon State as he's paving the way for Damian Martinez and co, moving people out the way, throwing them out the club. Joshua Gray's a name to look out for, and yeah, I think he's more suited for guard in his future for sure.
Yeah, I was very close to choosing the other tackle, Talise Fuaga on Oregon State, but I think both of them are phenomenal. One of if not the best duos in the conference right now.
Completely agree. Now, let's go and talk about some of these teams. We'll go in ABC order, starting with the Wildcats of Arizona.
Yeah, interesting team. They kind of had a resurgence last year. They were very bad for 2 years, but Jed Fish, he's starting to turn them around. Their offense is coming around. Jacob Cowling, one of the best receivers in the conference.
Yeah, and you spoke up McMillan earlier too.
Yeah,
I think someone else to look out for could be Montana Lamonius Craig, who transfers
yeah,
in
they did
from
get him from
Colorado
Colorado.
after the outrageous spring game. Jordan
Yeah,
Morgan's a hot name on their offensive line. Like this is an Arizona offense that has a lot of firepower. You look at Michael Wiley at running back as well. Maybe Rayshon Luke steps up and gets more of a role as well. There's a lot to like about Arizona. I think the one question mark is it's a bit of a tough schedule out here in the West in that Pac-12. What do you make of the schedule?
yeah. The schedule, yeah, I think they're gonna have a tough time. But for me, it comes back to consistency in the passing game. They didn't have that last year, and I think if they can build on that and kind of find a passing identity, then they're going to be able to compete with the likes of Washington, USC. They're going to be able to put up the points. So yeah, they're going to play Washington, USC back to back, and then finish the year with Utah and ASU. I think it's gonna be a tough run for them, but if their offense is as high powered as we know it could be, then they're definitely going to be in the mix in all of those games.
Yeah, so their win total by my bookie is 5.5. They're out there with that, like you said, Washington at USC on the Friday night, and then they go at Wazoo versus Oregon State versus UCLA.
Yeah,
That's a really tough stretch right in the meat of your season. And then like at Colorado, it's no gimme anymore, man. That's no gimme. So we'll see what
yeah.
Arizona is able to muster up. What's your expectation win loss wise?
I think they'll be a fringe bowl team. 5 to 6 wins sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right on par there too. I really like the receivers that this team has. I wish
Yeah,
that the passing game was more reliable. Um, I don't really want to speak on that more, but they have extremely talented receivers with Cowing, with McMillan, and with Lamonius Craig. All guys that are going to thrive and find great roles elsewhere when they end up graduating and everything. So
yeah,
we'll move on to ASU.
yeah. ASU, another team that last year, it didn't go the way some people expected to go. Emory Jones just wasn't it. At the end of the year, they did beat Washington, was it, with Trenton Bourguet? That was pretty fun. But yeah, they're in a rebuilding stage. They brought in Kenny Dillingham as their coach, and yeah, I don't know. ASU, I have mixed feelings about them.
All right, why do you have mixed feelings?
I feel like there's a path for them to be decent. Drew Pine isn't that bad of a quarterback. They brought him in from Notre Dame. Kenny Dillingham, the offense could definitely take a step with him. But at the same time, with the Pac-12, we've talked about how strong it is. I feel like everyone's kind of moving at an accelerated pace while they're sort of just coasting and doing a more traditional rebuild.
Well, non-conference, they've got Southern Utah, Oklahoma State, and Fresno State all at
Yeah.
home. Truthfully, three very winnable games. Oklahoma State isn't looking like they're anything special this season at all. Fresno State, I'm lower on than most. I think that they could really start 3-0 in non-conference play. They've got a win total of 4.5, so you'd only be having to look for two more wins elsewhere to hit their win total. Three to find a bowl game. Could they find that 6 win mark?
They're the conference schedule. I mean, like these teams are. I think they could end up not fluking their way into 3 wins, but winning 3 games within conference. But at the same time, I wouldn't bet on it. I think for them, Cal is a winnable game. Washington State is a winnable game, and Arizona at the end of the year is a winnable game. But the rest of the teams, it'll definitely be an uphill climb.
Yeah, well, who are some names that you're looking out for on this team? I really like the addition of Aaron Frost at right tackle. Played at Nevada for a few years. Big, tough force at running back. I mean, you have Cameron Scadaboo, you have DeCarlos Brooks. They really went out there and added a ton of players from the transfer portal on offense and defense.
Yeah, Pine I already talked about. I think he can be a consistent quarterback, like a game manager, I guess, is what you're looking for. And then, yeah, I don't know. The receivers, there's a couple of guys there that I think can help produce. Carlos Brooks from Cal, he's a solid, consistent presence. If that's the guy at running back, he'll have to replace Xavier Valade, who was a very strong player for them last year.
Yeah, Cameron Scadaboo as well in the backfield is an absurd athlete. Loves
Yeah,
doing cartwheels, as we saw at Sac State. Elijah Badger is in your
Elijah
receiver room,
Badger.
of
Yeah,
course.
that's the guy that I'm high on. He had just under 900 yards last year, 7 touchdowns, I believe.
Yeah, and then like we
He's,
said,
he's an
ton of
underrated player.
and then they've just got a ton of transfers like Xavier Guillory,
Yeah,
Malquan Stovall, Jordan Tyson, who you mentioned earlier,
yeah,
Troy Amir. Like they have so many transfers coming in. On defense, you really got like Ro Torrens at corner as well. It's always
yeah.
good having a
Rotor's the
presence
guy.
like him. He's going to be a guy that's getting NFL looks probably day 3 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I
I think,
think I had tight end Jalen Conyers. I think he made my top 10 tight ends for the draft.
yeah,
He's a solid player.
yeah, like they have a really it's see, I see a lot of intrigue with ASU. Like I feel like they could surprise people if Kenny Dillingham goes in there, gets this team like meshed together real well, real quickly, and I think that they could do that with their non-conference slate. And it's like being able to build off a 3-0 start with Dillingham's offense and the weapons that they have, and I don't know. I feel like something could happen here. I really do like them to get 6 wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they find the 7th, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's really for me, it's just a matter of everybody else in the conference has also gotten better along with
Mm-hmm.
them. So they were kind of starting from a lower point and it's going to be a bit more difficult. But they do definitely have a lot to like there. I think they could play spoiler in a couple of games.
Yeah, I like there's a world where ASU starts 5-1. Like that's a world that we actually live in. The
Yeah.
blueprint is there. And then the schedule gets a lot harder in the back half, but if you start 5-1 and you can't find a way to get to a bowl game, we've got some issues. But at the end of the day, the season's all about getting ASU in the right spot for
Yeah.
2024, which Dillingham will be able to do. We'll go on to your Cal Bears.
Yeah, I mean, Cal, they've struggled offensively. It's been a high profile kind of demise of the football program these last few years, but they do have a lot of talent there. They're consistently putting out NFL talent. It's just a matter of Justin Wilcox and his coaching staff putting it together within the season. So we talked about Sam Jackson coming in at quarterback, much more firepower than they've previously had. Last year, Jack Plummer was the quarterback. He actually had a pretty strong season, but he wasn't the dynamic playmaker that we think Jackson can be. Jaden Ott, who how can we not talk about him? One of the best running backs in the country. Took the conference by storm last year as a true freshman. But yeah, I do think between Jackson, Jeremiah Hunter, one of the more underrated receivers in the country, and yeah, between those three players, they have a solid skill core. It's just a matter of the offensive line coming around and the defense staying consistent.
Yeah, well, I wanted you to talk up that trio, but more so Jeremiah Hunter in particular, because like you said, he's one of the more underrated receivers in the country. This
Yeah.
guy that doesn't really ever get a shine, but he's a playmaker. And with Sam Jackson, and Jay and Ott, electricity's about to happen. These
Yeah.
three are why Cal's kind of a must-see offense.
Yeah, and I mean they added some guys for the portal too. They were pretty active. Running back, they added Byron Cardwell, who was he flashed at Oregon as a freshman. Isaiah Fons from Montana State, very decorated running back. So they're going to be 3, 4 deep at running back. Receiver, they've got Hunter, and they've got some freshmen coming up. And Isaiah Hunter is a guy that many are high on that have been around the Cal building. And then at offensive line, they added Matthew Wyckoff from Texas A&M. He had a very strong freshman year and could end up anchoring a resurging Cal offensive line. So I'm excited to see this offense, especially.
Anyone else on the defense that you're keeping your eye on aside from McMorris?
Yeah, for sure. I think McMorris, obviously, at corner, they got Noel Williams from UNLV. I think that was a very strong addition through the portal. Lumagia Hearns has been quite good through his first 2 years at Cal. Kalen Moore from Colorado was productive. Their corner room is actually quite intriguing, and just DB room in general. Craig Woodson at safety is one of the best players on that defense. They're gonna have, I would argue, 3 to 4 deep at corner, and two of the better safeties in the conference starting week 1. And then they're getting back Brett Johnson, who's been injured for the last 2 years. He was a guy who was getting NFL looks after his sophomore year. Phenomenal defensive tackle. But yeah, we'll have to see with that front seven. There's a lot of questions there.
So Cal's got a win total of 4.5. You wrote about them in our college football season preview magazine, which y'all could find for $9.99.
Yep.
Extremely good deal. Karan, you said they've got a ceiling of 8-4, a floor of 2-10, and realistically go 6-6. Tell us why you think Cal goes 6-6.
Yeah, I think bowl eligibility is probably the goal there, and I think it's very attainable. They're going to start the year with North Texas, which is a harder week 1 than some might think, especially on the road. Auburn week 2, that's going to be a fun one out of conference after dark. But yeah, if they can take at least 2 of their first 3 games, North Texas, Auburn, Idaho, I think they're going to enter with a decent chance at getting bowl eligibility. They've always kind of played spoiler within the conference. They've taken a couple games from Washington over the years. USC they took down to the wire last season. Oregon they beat 1 year. You know, there's a lot of opportunity there. I think Cal's going to be able to compete with Arizona State. They're going to be able to compete with UCLA maybe. UCLA's kind of gotten the best of them these past few years, but on paper those two are quite comparable roster-wise.
Yeah. So let's look, I think Cal's going to beat Auburn in week 2. Do you think they do that, or is there another game?
Hot take, but I feel more confident about that Auburn game than North Texas, honestly. I don't know what it is, but I feel like North Texas is like their offense is way more firepower than I'm expecting from Auburn.
I thought you were going to say more confident in Auburn than Idaho, honestly, and I was going to say, yeah, I could see that as well. But is there a game on their schedule aside from Auburn that you look at and you're expecting Cal to pull off an upset?
Yeah, I think Washington could be one. Washington, they've come down to the wire with them pretty much every year. Wilcox seems to have their number just consistently. And yeah, I think if the offense is as electric as we think it is, I think they could put up points against Washington and come away with the win on the road.
All right. I'm gonna put Utah in upset alert in week 7.
Yeah, I can see that one.
All right, so Cal, you're saying 6-6. I'm around the same ballpark, guys. I'm high on their offense as well, man. And like you said, the defense it might not have the name power that some of these other programs and good defenses do, but they've got some dudes in the secondary led by McMorris. So can't wait to watch Cal this season. Again, check our season preview magazine. Karan wrote plenty of good things to say about Cal while keeping it very unbiased. And we also have a nice player feature on there. In there on Jaden as well. So Cal fans, you're well represented in our season preview magazine. We're on to prime time though, man. Colorado, Big 12 Colorado, they're back, but we've got to talk about them in the Pac one more season. 1-11 last year, absolute dumpster fire. A win total of 4.5 this year is what Deion Sanders was able to move the needle towards.
Honestly, that's pretty impressive considering where they were last year. They were anemic, but yeah, with Colorado, I think I also wrote their thing in the magazine, so feel free to go check that out. There's a lot of high-end talent that they obviously brought in through the portal. That goes without denying, but it's a question of whether they filled the other spots, the trenches, the defense, and I can't say with certainty that they did. But that's really going to be what decides it. And opening the season with TCU, I mean, we're gonna have our answer right away whether they're for real or not.
Yeah, and hey, they played TCU very well for a little while in the opener last year, which was extremely surprising. A
Yeah.
game featuring Sam Jackson got in there for a bit, and then
Yeah,
we
he had a
saw
nice run. Yeah.
we saw Chandler Morris in there for TCU, and then alas, Max Duggan got in there and took the job.
Yeah.
So it'll be another very interesting game for a lot of other reasons between Colorado and TCU. And I mean, you know it, I know it, everyone listening knows it. This team is not the same as last year. They hit the transfer portal harder than anybody has ever hit the transfer portal. That entire team, a lot of them might not have known Colorado was in Boulder. Like they were everywhere else, and now they're in Boulder, and we'll see what happens. But I think a huge addition was Sean Lewis. Kent State's head coach ends up taking the step as an OC at Colorado. He's going to bring that fun, flashy, fast offense. Any expectations there and some of the personnel that will help make that succeed?
Yeah, no, I love the addition of Sean Lewis. That was one where I kind of started taking them seriously, you know. But yeah, in terms of personnel, you know, Shadur Sanders, Deion Sun, he's more than just Deion Sun. Let's not call him that. He was a great quarterback in the FCS, won the HBCU Player of the Year. I think Shadur kind of comes in with a similar profile to Cam Ward last year. High profile FCS transfer. He put up the numbers. He's got a ton of talent, but there are questions there. He's a bit skinny. His mechanics aren't as great as you'd like to see out of a top quarterback. But I think Shadur's gonna be fun. He's got the talent. He's a very electric player. But yeah, we'll have to see what Shadur, Travis Hunter, I talked about earlier. They've got a good running back duo, I'd say, between true freshman Dylan Edwards and Houston transfer Alton McCaskill. I'm excited to see those two.
Yeah, and that receiver, just some other names to point out, like Jimmy Horn is a nice deep threat.
He's gonna be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they've got a lot of names, but like you said, it's about if they got it going in the trenches, and that's the big question mark. I don't know, man. Again, win total is 4.5. You put the realistic record at 6-6, so you have them making that bowl game. Tell me why.
That was a little optimistic, I would say, but yeah, I think they can make a run for the bowl game. You were talking about their trenches. They did address that in some capacity. Savion Washington followed Sean Lewis from Kent State to Boulder. I think he's a strong player. And they also got Tyler Brown, who was a great FCS tackle at Jackson State. So between those two and they have a couple of returning guys who weren't too bad. I think they're going to have a decent offensive line. In terms of their schedule, they're going to go to TCU week 1. That one will be interesting. I don't think they come away with that one. But Nebraska week 2, maybe that's winnable. Colorado State, I think they'll beat. And then you enter conference play, and there's winnable games there. I think they're a better team than ASU. I think Arizona, that would be a fun game. Washington State would also be a competitive game. But I think there's 5 to 6 wins on their schedule.
And there's no denying that Colorado games are going to be fun. Yeah. High octane, plenty of offense, exposing weak points in the defense. It's going to be great television for you. Offensive sickos. We're on to the Oregon Ducks because in the Pac-12, the ABC order just straight up skips. It goes from C to O. That's just how we do it. So the Oregon Ducks, they were 10-3 last season. A lot of expectations this year. The win total is just 9.5. What do you make of Oregon this season? Who are you looking out for?
I mean, I'll talk a bit more about Oregon later when we go over some of the final predictions. But their offense is going to be great. It was great last year. A lot of people were kind of sleeping on them coming into the year, but they really, really turned up. Bucky Irving at running back, phenomenal player. Troy Franklin is one of my favorite receivers in the conference right now. He's a great player to watch, super athletic, super electric playmaker. I think he's in for a huge season. So that offense is going to be fun. And then, on defense, they're going to lose Christian Gonzalez, Noah Sewell, a couple other guys. So look for Brandon Dorless to step up on the pass rush. He might be their best defensive player, maybe. And Yeah, they have a couple good recruits coming in as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the talent there, Oregon's always talented. They're always going to be a high profile, electric team, but it's just a matter of whether they can take that step to becoming a conference champion again.
Speaking of high-level recruits, Jurion Dickey, if he's able to
Yeah.
get in there and make an impact as a freshman, it's going to be huge for the
Yeah.
Oregon Ducks' future. Love Troy Franklin as well. Tez Johnson, he and Bo Nix are going to be a great connection. This Oregon roster, they've got a lot of good players. The addition of a Johnny Cornelius too on the offensive
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
coveted
Rhode Island.
transfer from Rhode Island. Everybody wanted him. I think he's a legit NFL prospect. Whether he's going as a tackle or a guard, he's just very sound fundamentally. He's really good in the run game too.
Yeah.
Holds his own in the pass game. He's going to be a heck of a player. This is an Oregon roster that is just loaded with dudes. Kyrie Jackson, Tysheem Johnson in the secondary. I mean, everywhere you look on the Ducks roster, there's a dude. What do you make of the 9.5 win total? Do you think that's too high, too low?
I think it's doable. I'm not going to say they get there, but I do think it's doable. And I think Oregon's a good enough team to win 10, 11 games in the Pac-12. It's just a matter of whether everything can come together.
Mm-hmm.
They're out of conference schedule. They open Portland State, Texas Tech, as we talked about earlier, and Hawaii. I think those three are all winnable games. Then they head to Colorado. That's winnable. Stanford, winnable. But then it gets a bit difficult with Washington on the road. As you said, that's one of the biggest games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're gonna be able to take the games that are easy for them. But I don't know. We saw last year, we thought it was granted that they were going to go to the conference championship when they were leading against Washington and they were leading against Oregon State, but it just didn't come to fruition. So
yeah, I mean, so when you look at the schedule again, having the bye week after the Stanford game before the Washington game could be pretty clutch. This is a team that optimistically is 5-0 after their first five. They're 5-0, ranked highly, feeling good about themselves going into the high level clash with Washington. The only question mark is that Texas Tech game. That's the only one where I look at in that first 5 games. I have question marks about. It's a big game for Oregon. Look at the rest of their schedule though. You play Washington State at home, at Utah versus Cal versus USC. That's another big stretch of 4 games.
yeah.
I don't know. So how many wins do you think Oregon gets? Are you saying 9?
I think nine is safe. I think they'll 9. I would go 9.
All right.
I have such a bad feeling about that Oregon State game though at the end of the year. I just feel like that the writing on the wall is just every year there seems to be that game at the end of the year where a team that seems to be on track to be a Pac-12 championship game, like or Pac-12 championship contender, just completely goes off the rails in the last week of the season. I mean, last year Oregon, obviously against Oregon State, that ended their season. We saw it a couple of years ago, Oregon against Arizona State with Justin Herbert, that ended their season. I get a bad feeling about the Oregon State game. I think that's going to be phenomenal football.
Yeah, it's just what the Pac-12 does best. It embarrasses their top dogs. It cannibalizes itself. It's just good balanced football. The addition of Will Stein is massive though and cannot be understated. Formerly of UTSA, he brings a lot of good things to the offense, a lot of intriguing concepts. I think one thing that you'll see often is just leaking the tight end over the middle and trying to hit a quick gain for a 10, 15-yard chunk. I think they do a very good job of that. So we'll see if Terrence Ferguson is the dude at tight end for the Ducks. And again, what we saw with UTSA in years past, they've gotten a lot out of their trio of receivers, not just one guy, not just 2 guys. DeCorian Clark, Zachary Franklin, Joshua Cephas all went in there and they ate as roadrunners. So you're going to see a lot of producing receivers, and Bo Nix is going to have so much NFL and maybe even Heisman talk on his like going towards them. So it's going to be an Oregon team that has plenty of attention. Will Stein's going to have a chance to really elevate his stock as well and maybe turn into a head coaching gig just after 1 year as the Ducks OC.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So you like Oregon for about 9 wins. I like them for 9. I like them for 10, somewhere around that ballpark as well. We'll go to the Beavers, though, the team that you think gives Oregon a scare at the end of the season, led by Damian Martinez. Quietly won 10 games last season. Oregon State's brand just doesn't do its play justice. It doesn't move the needle. Folks, you're missing out. The chainsaws, the Jonathan Smith squad is good. Win total of 8.5 this season, Karan.
I think they beat that. I'm a big Oregon State fan. I'm a big Jonathan Smith fan. I've been one for a while, and I think this is really the year it all comes to fruition for them. They brought in DJ Uyagale from Clemson. You know, he had a very high profile tenure there. Didn't really go as many expected, but he's obviously got the talent. He's flashed it throughout his 3 years at Clemson. He's coming into a system where he doesn't really have to do much. The bar isn't very high for him. I have it pulled up here. Oregon State and their 3 losses last year, their quarterbacks, Ben Gilbranson and Chance Nolan combined for 5.8 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions overall, which was just putrid. If you watched those games, you wanted to rip your eyeballs out, especially the USC one for me.
Oh, the USC one was one of the most winnable games I've ever seen lost.
I really every time Chance Nolan dropped back, I just like lost a year off my list watching that game.
It was so brutal to watch, and I really felt for Beavers fans. And Caleb Williams just willed USC to that win in the very end, and he ripped out the hearts of Beavers fans. I mean, this was a team that really could have won 11 games last year. The Washington game was also just a monumental.
That was bad.
Oh my gosh, that game was brutal to watch as a fan of offense. Like that game was so gross and nasty. It was like we were watching the Big Ten West.
That was a funny team last year. Remember the Stanford game? That was the worst Hail Mary I've ever seen. That was probably the worst. That was maybe the worst completion I've ever seen in my life.
The Stanford game that Oregon State was able to win 28-27, so improbable. So yeah, maybe 10 games was right because they should have beat USC. They should not have beat Stanford. But look at this Oregon State team. You look in the backfield, you look at Damian Martinez. You've got a legit RB1 who, again, this is a theme with Pac-12 players, a lot of extremely underrated talent because they're on the West Coast, and ain't nobody on the East Coast doing media really cares about what these guys bring to the table, and they don't hype them up enough. Damian Martinez entering his sophomore year is a dog, and he's working behind one of the best offensive line groups in the country. Yeah. We talked about Gray. We talked about Tyrese. They still have Jake Levengood. Like this unit is massive. And when you have a unit of this caliber in the trenches in the Pac-12, that goes a really long way because this ain't the SEC. This ain't the Big Ten. These trenches are going to be able to move dudes out the way with ease and really, really spark this Oregon State offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything's there really for them to capitalize on. They did lose a bit of talent. Luke Musgrave got drafted by the Packers. Omar Spates transferred to LSU. So they're going to have to replace Jack Coletto, their versatile fullback. He signed with the 49ers. So they're going to have to replace those guys. But in terms of the talent they brought in, I think DJ, I'll probably get a chance to talk about it earlier, but I'm higher on him than most people are. I think he's really, when he's on, man. I think Jonathan Smith can kind of cover up for some of those mistakes that he might make.
Yeah, and this is like Jonathan Smith does get a lot of respect, but I feel like this season, if he's able to do very well with a broken DJU and revitalize his career, everyone's going to eat that up and start talking about Jonathan Smith as the next dude, like the next great head coach. So this is a big year for Jonathan Smith as well. When you're looking at the Oregon State roster, the one thing that really stands out to me is the lack of a true alpha WR1. I wish that they were able to find that in the transfer portal, but they said, hey, we got our guys. We're going to make do. We're going to trust these guys to really produce. Who's the WR that you look out for on this offense?
Honestly, I can't say I really have one that I'm super high on. I think someone will emerge there that ends up being the guy. Anthony Gould had a solid season last year. I think he'll be a consistent target for DJ, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of just it's always been like Jonathan Smith kind of scheming guys open has been their best way of moving the ball, and I think that'll kind of continue here.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Maybe Trevor Pope is able to break out, and that'd be a huge addition for the Beavs. Looking at their defense, what stands out to you? I know Oladipo is a very strong player in the secondary. Jay Robinson, another good cornerback. Like,
The kid they brought in from Wyoming, I'm not gonna act like I can pronounce his name, but he was very strong. And when I was watching them for Wyoming's, when I was working on Wyoming's magazine preview, he came up a lot when I was watching them and looking through their stats. He had a very strong season. I think he's one of the more underrated acquisitions
yeah,
of
just
any
call him.
Pac-12 team.
Yeah, just Olu
Olu,
Omotoso.
yeah.
All right. So looking at the Beaver schedule again, win total 8.5 over at my bookie to win the conference, I believe is plus 890. Looking at the schedule, what do you make of it? Non-conference, you're at San Jose State versus UC Davis versus San Diego State. Very doable 3-0 against some lesser West Coast programs.
I'm a believer, man. I really do think this is a team that can make a run all the way to the championship game if they get consistent production out of the quarterback position. They should have done it last year. I really do believe that. And I think this year, if their schedule is not too challenging, obviously they're going to play Utah and they're going to play Oregon and Washington. That's going to be huge. But they avoid USC and they get a pretty solid midseason stretch. I mean, Cal, UCLA, Arizona, Colorado, Stanford. I think those are all, that's a pretty solid back-to-back like stretch to have in the middle of the year. Much better than some other teams have.
Ending with Washington and at Oregon is pretty unfortunate though.
Yeah.
That stinks. I think it's hilarious if my geography isn't failing me that the furthest out east they go is Colorado. Like these guys are staying in the West. Every team they play is in the West Coast. If you want to count Colorado as a West Coast for now until they go back to the Big 12. But I don't know. 9-3 is the realistic prediction in our magazine with a ceiling of 10 to floor of 6-6. You liking 9 wins or more?
I like 9 wins. I want to say 10 wins though. I really do think I think between their games against Utah, Washington, and Oregon, I think they'll take at least one of those.
Yeah, I think I like 10 wins as well. That as we were talking about Oregon State and Oregon, that last week, the final tilt could very well be deciding who goes to play in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah,
it's a massive season for both Oregon and Oregon State. I think Oregon State. I like 10 wins, man. I really do. So we'll move on to Stanford, which is on the decline. They've been on the decline, but Troy Taylor's there now, and there might be a little hope.
I think there's hope, but in the short term, there's not really much to look forward to there. They have Ari Patu at quarterback. There's not much to say about him. He hasn't played much, and he wasn't like a super highly touted recruit. And then, yeah, I think Troy Taylor, though, what he did at Sacramento State was amazing. His offense was super high powered, and I think he will be able to I think he'll be able to get the most out of the players he has, but the talent just isn't there really. I like EJ Smith at running back, and they do tend to have some good receivers every year, but yeah, the talent's just disappointing. On defense, David Bailey's a guy that I like a lot, but otherwise, it's not looking too great.
Mm-hmm. So since upsetting number 3 Oregon on October 2nd, 2021, Stanford is 1-14 against Pac-12 opponents. The only win was against ASU in October 2022. You gotta fix that. That's gotta be fixed.
At the same time, if you watch Stanford over the last 4 years of David Shaw being there, their offense was so bad. Like it was just so hard to watch them. Everything from under center, 2 tight ends, 22 personnel, and they just pounded up the middle every single time.
Yeah. Someone said it was pretty predictable.
Pounded up the middle every time and then have 3 receivers who were 6'6" and ran like a 4.7 40 and just toss up a fade every once in a while. And they had good quarterbacks too, which made it really disappointing. Tanner McKee, I think they criminally failed him. in
Some
terms of
would
what they
say it was very predictable, very disappointing. Miles Jackson, though, at quarterback is someone to
yeah.
look out for in the
I
future.
think it would be fun if we get to see him this year, but
Yeah, at the very
yeah,
end of it, maybe see him get some action against Cal, Notre Dame, get his feet wet and figure things out before he rises to the occasion and hopefully 2024 and beyond. I mean, Benjamin Urosek is a dominant tight end as well. That
he's a
again,
good
you
player.
were
Yeah,
talking about Tanner McKee being failed. Urosek's kind of been failed as well in years
yeah,
past because he's an NFL tight end. He just really hasn't been able to boost that stock up, that name brand, unfortunately, but he's a very strong player. Looking at the Stanford schedule, I don't know, man. Win total's 3.5. You thinking 3 wins, 4 wins, or what?
yeah. I think three is that's probably realistic. I would be happy if they got out of the year with 3 wins.
Who
They're gonna
would you
go
say their 3 wins are?
well, okay. If they lose to Hawaii, that's just tragic. I mean, if they lose to Hawaii, I think they're probably the worst program in the country.
I mean, Kent State.
Possibly.
Kent State might not
Hawaii.
win a game this year. Not to like make this Mac talk because
You
that's
think
coming out
Hawaii
next
wins the
week,
game?
but
I mean, I don't
I
know.
think I'd have to like. You want to do this now? Okay, talk about Stanford for a
No,
little.
no.
No, yeah. Let me look at White's schedule. Talk about Stanford for a little.
I did their preview for the magazine. I think they will end up winning probably a game, but they're not very good still. But either way, looking at the schedule, they're going to go to Hawaii. Hopefully, they win that. Sac State, I think they'll win that. But then their conference games, I mean, where do we see a win here?
A win for Stanford.
Yeah, they're going to start the first conference game at USC. No. Arizona, maybe they can compete with Arizona at home.
Like an in conference game. I think there's only a handful of games at Stanford, but like again, then again, it's Stanford and they could just win a
I think
random game for no reason.
if
But
Stanford wins 3 games, it'll be Hawaii, Cal, and after that, I don't know.
you don't think Sac State?
Oh, and Sac State. Okay, yeah.
All right. So Sac State still even without Taylor is going to be a very highly touted FCS team this season. Maybe not to the stature that they were in years past, but they're still can be good. Look, Stanford will very often just beat UCLA. So I mean that game is always a nightmare for UCLA fans. It's never a gimme. That's a game that I think Stanford could get for absolutely no reason. But yeah, I mean 3 wins here, I think is what you're looking at. And if you win 4 or 5, you look at it is a true success in year one of Taylor's reign, and you move on to 2024 and get the ball really rolling.
Yeah, I mean, in recent years when they have like pulled off these upsets, like when they beat UCLA in the COVID year, or it was 2021. No, it was the COVID year, and last year they beat Notre Dame. I mean, these have all been games where the quarterback just they had an NFL quarterback who sort of just put it all together for that one game. Davis Mills bailed them out a couple times. Tanner McKee did it. But I just don't know with Ari Patu here. Obviously, coaching has improved substantially, but yeah, I think this can be a rough year for them.
All right, well, we're on to UCLA, who's got a win total of 8.5. They went 9-4 last season. College football fans are sad. Many rejoice. The DTR era is over. In comes Dante Moore or Colin Schlee to take the reins.
Keep sleeping on Ethan
Garbers,
man.
Ethan Garber, hey man, we'll see what happens. Justin Martin. Yeah, well, Chase Griffin, maybe the future president of the United States, is able to get in there. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. But Dante Moore should win the quarterback job. He is a sensational talent that UCLA was somehow able to get. It is unbelievable that Chip Kelly was able to get Dante Moore as a recruit. UCLA is just notorious for not recruiting and struggling out there. So a massive win for them to land Moore. They also landed Carson Steele in the transfer portal, as I talked about. He and TJ Harden form a nice RB1, RB2 duo. What do you make of the Bruins? You also have J. Michael Sturdy, man. How can I not mention Sturdy?
I was gonna say it if you didn't.
We're the biggest Sturdy guys.
Phenomenal player, yeah. I like UCLA. I think the talent is there. I just don't know if they're transitioning at quarterback. Obviously, they had DTR for 25 years. Now they're moving on to Dante Moore next year for sure, but maybe not this year. So it's a transition year for UCLA. I think. What do you know what the line is on them?
8.5. I think it's too high.
Yeah, I think they finished below that. I think 7 wins would be good for UCLA.
I think opening with Coastal is a pretty good, like, I think it's a good test because Coastal is not Coastal's also transitioning. They're in a transition year, even though they still got Grayson McCall. Like, yeah, they're going to be competing for a Sun Belt, but they're going to be implementing a new offense under Coach Beck and Coach Trickett. So we'll see what goes there. But that's a good first game to get your feet wet at San Diego State versus NC Central. Like, you should be looking at 3-0 in non-conference play. And then I don't know. I think that's where doubt starts to seek in. At Utah, I don't think is a winnable game. First Washington State, they could very well drop. At Oregon State, they should probably drop. At Stanford brings every UCLA fan nightmares. Getting the at Stanford versus Colorado, at Arizona versus ASU stretch of 4 games is so massive for that team to be able to get the ball rolling and build some momentum. And then, of course, at USC versus Cal to finish things off. Our season preview has them with a ceiling of 11-1, floor of 8-4, realistically 9-3. I disagree there, just being blunt. I don't think the floor is 8-4. I'd say the floor is like 6 wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. UCLA, they're a tough team to gauge. They're not a free win by any means. Nobody's going to go in there and think they're coming out of it with an easy win. But at the same time, their roster isn't in the place that contenders like Oregon, Washington, USC are, obviously.
Yeah, I would give UCLA 6 or 7 wins this season. Like, I think that they're going to take a step back, but I also don't think that this should be a season where UCLA and their fans or rather UCLA fans and outsider fans are expecting UCLA to compete at a high level and for a Pac-12 championship. I think that's way too high of expectations for what we're thinking is year 1 of Dante Moore. I think, again, as a theme with some of these Pac-12 teams, just get out there, build some momentum, get into 2024, and whether you're sticking with the pack or not, get the ball rolling for next season, get the good momentum going, and good things will happen in the future. I really think it's 6 or 7 wins for UCLA this season, but that trio that we could have or rather just the connection between Dante Moore and J. Michael Sturdivant is so nasty. It's going to be incredible. Some other guys to look out for would be Logan Loya and the slide. I think could stand out and make. We've seen guys in years past like Chase Cota. More recently was able to absolutely carve Jake Bobo as well. Yeah, like they'll find these guys in a spot that are able to make good things happen. The running back room is very talented, as we said. TJ Hart and Carson Steele. You have the Murphy bros on defense. Jay Toya nose tackle.
Leatu Latu on defensive line, maybe the best defensive lineman in the conference.
Latu is super coveted by many. I think
Femi Oladejo they brought in from Cal. He's a very underrated linebacker. Had a great couple of years there.
I was just gonna say I think he was one of the more underrated pickups in the portal. I think he can make a really good impact. The secondary, they've got to find something though. I think outside of Devin Kirkwood, who has his highs and has his lows, you've really got to find something in the secondary quicker rather than later. Maybe Jordan Anderson from Bowling Green's a name to look out for, but they've got to find something in the secondary very badly. And then, as always, offensive line play at UCLA is strong. It's just what happens in Chip Kelly's system.
Yeah.
So, how many wins do you see for UCLA?
I think 7 is a safe bet.
7. All right. So we're there at the 6 or 7 range, which would put them under the 8.5 mark, and UCLA fans would be very disappointed. So it's only fitting we go on to USC. 11-3 last year, win total of 10.5 this season. Caleb Williams leads the way. They're good. They're very good.
Yeah, last year was a bit of a tragedy at the end. Utah ran it up against them, and then Tulane. That was a fun game.
Yeah, they
But
had two
we
losses
didn't
by a
see
point.
USC kind of. We saw their roster flaws get exposed, even though they made a ton of great additions in the portal. Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison. They just didn't have like the defense needed to compete. And so heading into this year, they continued to be active in the portal. Obviously, Lincoln Riley is going to continue to do that, but Alex Grinch is still their defensive coordinator. Not many people are very happy about that. And yeah, they're going to have to answer some questions there. The tackling just wasn't there last year.
No, the tackling at USC has been garbage for a few years now.
Yeah.
They
And
got
I've seen a
absolutely
couple of clips of their practices recently. It hasn't looked much better.
has not looked, but that's not what you want to hear if you're a Trojans fan or a believer in them.
Yeah.
Again, that Utah game in the Pac-12 championship, they got absolutely embarrassed trying to tackle people. Utah's grown men just outworked, outbullied these guys. Some names to look out for though on USC's roster. I mean, talent is oozing everywhere. Dorian Singer's a
Dorian, yeah, that's a big one.
gargantuan transfer. Mario Williams, Brendan Rice, maybe Zakaria Branch gets into the mix at receiver too. Taj Washington, their receiver room is way, way too deep. It's just they have so many guys. There's going to be some unhappy campers there. Caleb Williams is throwing them the ball too. Hey, Caleb Williams is good if you didn't
Marshawn
know.
Lloyd, they brought in at running back from South Carolina.
Yeah, the offense is just loaded with talent. Anyone on the offensive line that sticks out to you?
I think the unit as a whole is quite solid. I don't think they really have a weakness on the offense anywhere, to be honest. You know, they're not like they lost some talent like Jordan Addison and whatnot, but yeah, the offensive line as a whole, I'm pretty high on.
Yeah, the defense is obviously going to need to improve,
Yeah, they brought in Bear Alexander recently.
especially in
That
the
was a big
trenches. So
one.
Bear Alexander was a big addition. What do you like about his game?
I think he can be that presence up front that they've lacked for a while now. We've seen it with contending teams that have sort of put out the blueprint. Georgia is one of them. You know, they've always had quality defensive tackles. I think Bear Alexander can be that. Corey Foreman is a guy who people have been anticipating a big step from. I think we probably get that from him this year. He's got a good opportunity to do it. And
I'm glad you brought Corey Foreman because he's really got to emerge as that top end talent that everyone was assuming he would be coming out of high school. If he and Bear Alexander could form a dynamic duo in the trenches, they could help carry USC's defense, just apply pressure on the run game, but also get after the quarterback and really get the quarterback thinking. What USC's defense needs to do is start intimidating offenses, and that's not something that they've been able to do. Like, they need to make their presence felt. They need to hit hard. They need to securely tackle people. It's going to start with Bear Alexander and Corey Foreman, and then Kalen Bullock's got to live up to his preseason hype. He has to play. I mean, I don't know what you make of his preseason hype. I think it's a little out of control, though.
I think he's a very talented player, and I do see why people are so high on him, but he can't hit. And I feel similarly about Eric Gentry at linebacker.
Sayre Wright, though, a nice corner to look out for as well. Who's looking to get a bigger role this season? Anyone else in the secondary jump out to you?
I mean, we talked about Bullock, and I'm looking at their secondary. It's kind of just a next man up type of thing. Like, I don't know if there's one guy you can point at.
Their secondary is going to be picked on.
Domani Jackson, I guess, is entering his second year. He was a super highly touted recruit, and this could be the year we kind of see him get unleashed.
The opposing offenses often picked on USC's defense secondary last year. They're going to try and do the same this year. Again, win totals 10.5. They have college football playoff aspirations. Can they get there? They're non-conference. It's San Jose State, Nevada, and of course the Notre Dame game.
Yeah. See, I think they can get there. I feel like this is the case with every team. And they honestly don't their schedule is somewhat challenging, but looking past Utah, Washington, Oregon, every other game we should assume is a win.
Yeah,
It's
they
just the Utah thing, man. I don't. Last
bad
year
taste
against
in your
Utah was just
mouth.
embarrassing. Yeah, I don't know. There is clearly a blueprint to beat USC. We've seen it. I don't think they've improved to the point where they've kind of beaten those allegations of no defense,
Yeah,
soft,
and
no tackling.
and as like cliche as this sounds, USC's upcoming schedule is really a tale of two seasons. They should go 6-0 in the first half, and then the
Yeah,
back half you have at Notre Dame versus Utah,
yeah,
at Cal versus Washington, at Oregon versus UCLA. I mean, the second half of their season is so much tougher than the first, and that's really
hmm
where things start to get real for USC, and we'll see how they handle that. What I mean, I assume you have them going 6-0 in the front half, but what about the back
yeah.
half?
I think they'll Notre Dame. We talked about that earlier. I think that'll be a big game for them. Assuming they come away with that one, then I think one loss in the second half of the season is a pretty safe bet.
All right, I truthfully I could see him dropping the ball at Notre Dame and Utah back-to-back
Yeah,
games, and then
that would be a
losing,
tragedy.
and
If
then
they do
losing
that,
to
then I
one
think
of
they'll probably
Washington
lose
or
to one of
Oregon.
Washington, Oregon. Yeah,
Yeah, so I have them in that 9-3 range because I think I could very easily see them losing the back-to-back with Notre Dame and Utah. Just going to Notre Dame, you're starting 6-0,
hmm
you're feeling the highs, you have that letdown game, and then as we see
yeah,
in college football so often, the emotions get to you and they don't come out as the same team they were in the first half in their next game against
hmm
Utah. There's your 6-2, and then I just think Washington and Oregon are better all around teams. So I would like one
yeah.
of
I
them
like
to
them honestly. USC, I think the roster is a bit better this year, but I like them more last year in terms of winning within the conference.
the defense still really worries me. I
hmm
do think that we get a lot from Bear Alexander and the big step up from Corey Foreman, but as a whole unit, I'm worried, and what we saw with Oklahoma in years past shouldn't make us feel any better.
Yeah,
So I'm going with 9-3 for SC.
yeah. I think that's fair. I'll go 9-3.
All right. Next up, we will talk about Utah.
Uh,
Let's go straight into it.
they're inevitable, man. I mean, I don't know if you can really bet against a Utah three-peat at this point. It really feels like everybody's just playing Kyle Whittingham's game. I will say the Cameron Rising injury, I don't know what the timeline is on that, but that could be concerning if they have to trot out Bryson Barnes week one. And then looking past that, I mean, they've got some questions at DB. They lost Clark Phillips to the NFL, but they do still have Cole Bishop, who many are very high on.
Yeah, Cole Bishop should be in for a monster season
Yeah.
as the leader of that defense. He's an absolute force. Junior Tafuna, a very good
Junior
player as
Tafuna,
well.
good player.
We know Utah's just gonna find there's gonna be some guys that maybe we're not talking about on the Utah defense right now. But in the fall, I mean, maybe you have like a Zamaya Vaughn that absolutely breaks out in a big way. Like they're gonna be able to find a Justin Medlock, a guy to look out for as well. And on
Yeah, they
offense,
still have
money.
Brant Keith. He's been there forever.
Yeah, Brant Keithy has been at Utah since 1994. I can't
Yeah.
believe he's still there. He and Thomas Yasmin form
Thomas
a
Yasmin is a crazy
monster duo.
athlete. Yeah.
I don't. People are talking a lot about Keithy. I've been talking about him for what seems like since I got a Twitter account.
Yeah.
I can't believe Keithy's not in the NFL. Yeah, I think Keithy is better suited for the NFL than
Yeah,
college
I think
football.
I put him down as like a fullback type H back
Yeah.
on my NFL draft.
Well, I think he's better suited to be a very impactful NFL player. Thomas Yasmin's an exciting talent. He's an old
Yeah.
man, rugby background. This is someone that is not getting near as much hype as he should going into the season. We saw what he did to SC last season as well in the Pac-12
Yeah.
championship game. That tight end duo is super intriguing. And then I look at Money Parks as someone who could really have a big year at receiver. Like you talked about, though, Cam Rising's injury. Can he get on track? Can he be there for week one, the opener against Florida? If this team, with or without Cam Rising, loses to a Graham Mertz-led Florida team, we've got issues.
You know, yeah, we'll have to see.
know.
Barnes is a walk on, I believe. It's not like we should put too much stock into him.
All right. I mean, the run game though
I do
Jalen
think
Glover,
they'll
Micah
be
Bernard, Jaquindon Jackson's
Jaquindon
going to break
Jackson.
out in a big
Yeah.
way. Former quarterback. That guy runs with as much
Mhm.
steam as you could ask for, more than like Thomas the Train. This guy is
Pac-12
a
championship
force
game
running
hero.
downhill. Yes, he loves the spin move as well.
Mhm.
He's someone to really look out for, especially if you're a diehard NFL draft fan that's looking for a day 3 running back in the future. Jaquindon Jackson might be your guy. Looking at
Yeah.
Utah's schedule, what are you thinking? Their win total's what, 8.5, 9.5? It is 8.5.
I think they'll go over 8.5. Assuming Rising's healthy, I think that's an asterisk. Baylor week 2, that'll be an interesting one. It's a strong
Yeah, nice
defense
test.
always under Dave Aranda.
Yeah,
But I do think Florida and Baylor are both winnable games for them. Weber State winnable. And then going into the conference games, they play Washington, Oregon, USC. That's obviously going to be a challenge. But I think they go. I think over 8.5 is. Yeah, I think they'll win 10 games probably.
Yeah, it's a really strong non-conference schedule. First, Florida, returning the game from last year at Baylor, then first Weber State, who's like a top 5 FCS team. That's a very respectable non-conference schedule, especially when you're playing a tough 9-game conference schedule in the Pac-12. As we've said with so many of these Pac-12 teams, there are tough stretches. That at USC versus Oregon stretch is tough, but we've talked up the Utes a little bit. We think that they're going to win some of these games. We think that they could win at USC. You're saying over 8.5? Yeah, this is
I'm
like a
pretty
9-10
confident.
win team. Again, asterisks on if Cam Rising's playing or not. We're
Mm,
assuming he's going to be there healthy all year, and if he is, 9-10 wins.
yeah.
That's the expectation. That's what we think.
Yeah, I don't see how you could bet against Utah at this point. They've won 2 in a row. They have a very real chance at 3 in a row. And yeah, we'll have to see.
All right, on to the Huskies of
Yeah.
Washington. Win total of 9.5. They went 11-2 last year. The 2 losses were back to back, kind of early in their season when they were 4-0. They faltered to 4-2, lost by 8 and lost by 7 to ASU and UCLA. Well, 8 to UCLA, 7 to ASU, but whatever. It's all about this season. High flying passing attack. Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, Michael Penix Jr., Roman Dunze, Joe McMillan. Let's talk up the Huskies.
The offense is crazy. I mean, we saw last year Penix. He was good at Indiana, struggled with injuries, but he really turned up last year, back reunited with Kalen DeBoer. They've got maybe 3 NFL receivers up there. They brought in Jeremy Bernard as well, I believe. But yeah, Romo Dunze, I think, is probably the best receiver in the conference. Jalen McMillan, not too far behind him. Polk is a competent player. Those are 3 guys that I think could make the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Someone
Their
I'd
run
look
game
out
is
for.
solid.
Someone I'd also look out for in their receiving room that I've heard good things about is Denzel Boston. Not sure if that impact comes this season, but a name to know for 2024 and beyond, that's for certain.
Yeah, their offense is just crazy. They've got so much depth at receiver, great scheme. Penix, I think the question with Penix always has to just be his health. But if he's on the field, we saw a glimpse of what he has to offer last year.
I wish that they had a certified RB1, like a true dog at running back. They don't necessarily, like when we're looking at this conference as a whole, Washington's on the lower end of running back talent, in my opinion. Who do you think is going to be their top dog?
I honestly don't know. I think they'll go by committee. That's
Yeah.
probably the safest approach to take there.
All right. Is there a guy that you're higher on than others, or?
Not particularly.
All right. Okay. Dylan Johnson, I think, could carve out a stronger role,
from
though.
Mississippi State.
Yeah,
I think
especially in the
they're
passing
expecting
game.
that.
All right.
Yeah.
The passing game is going to be lethal. They've got good guys on the offensive line like Troy Fatanu. Let's talk about the defense, which is still very good. Zach Durfee's an intriguing player as well that transfers in from, I believe, the D2 level, if I'm not mistaken. The ZTF, we've got to talk about him.
ZTF,
Braylon Trice, like their edge rushers are dogs.
Yeah, ZTF, if he can get back into that pre-injury form, you're looking at the best pass rushing duo in the conference, I would say, with him and Trice. Yeah, Trace, I'll talk about a bit more later, but I think those two are phenomenal. They lost a couple of guys to the portal, but
Mhm. It was D2 for Zach Durfee.
yeah.
Just had to verify Sioux Falls was D2. And not like D3 or whatever. But yeah, defense has some really good players. Asa Turner's a strong player in their secondary. Jabbar Muhammad could make some big plays. Is there a breakout player that you're looking for? Maybe an Elijah Jackson comes out and thrives. Davon Banks.
Yeah, I mean, you named it. I think those two are quite good. I think talking about ZTF getting back to injury, I think Eddie Olashofio as well is another guy who he had a
Huge.
strong season 1 or 2 years ago, but he's been slowed down a bit by injuries and whatnot. So if those two can really put it together, get back to where they once were, then you're looking at a solid defense. Nothing to complain about.
And all this offense needs is a solid defense, and that's why I prefer Washington to USC because I think Washington's defense is just straight up better. I think that we could put these offenses toe to toe, and they could both score 100 points on anyone. It seems so. You look at Washington's schedule. Very respectable season opener. You're opening with a very good Boise State team. That's going to be a nice test there. Tulsa at Michigan State. Then you get
Mhm.
into that Pac-12 schedule, and what do you make of it?
Yeah, Boise State, I think week one that'll be a fun game to watch. They'll probably come out of that with the win, probably come out of Tulsa with the win. Michigan State doesn't look too great, but we'll have to see with that one. But within conference, I mean, they'll be close in a lot of games. That's kind of been how they've played the last few years. They don't really blow teams out, but they outscore them. Cal, that'll be a fun game. I talked about that as one that Cal could steal. Arizona, that would be fun. And then you get to Oregon. Really, that's going to be the test. How could it not be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And,
Oregon, middle of the year. That'll be fun.
and of course, like they got you at USC and versus Utah back to back. Of course, that's just how it works in this conference.
Yeah. At
And
Oregon
and
State
at
after,
Oregon State as
yeah.
well versus
And then you
Washington
finish with the
State.
Apple Cup.
It's a very tough final four games, but I like Washington to go 11-1 their regular season. I really do. I think the lone game that they drop, I don't know because I can't remember what I said about the other team schedule, so I don't want to like falter, but I think they dropped one game.
I think Utah beats them. I think Utah will finish ahead of Washington. So I go 9 to 10 wins for Washington.
9 to 10 wins. I'm 11-1, very high on the Huskies. Also, how can you not be excited about Washington State? This is another team. Like again, the Pac-12 just got so much good talent. We talked about
Yeah, it
DT
goes deep.
Sheffield earlier. Now we're talking about Washington State. Jake Dickert's crew. Talk to us about Wazoo.
Man, I mean Washington State last year, they didn't have like the overnight breakout that some people thought they would, but they definitely did have some fun games. They beat Wisconsin earlier in the year after struggling with Idaho. It was a weird start to the season for them. But Cam Ward, I would say his first year in FBS football was a success. Even though it was a bit rocky at times, he flashed the arm talent we knew he had, and he improved down the stretch in terms of his mechanics. So if he can really come into this year, clean up his release, and take it to another level, then their passing game is going to be great. The scheme's there. He's been in it for a while now.
Yeah,
Um,
and he's got really good players to throw to. DT Sheffield, Kyle Williams, Josh Kelly, all transferring in. I mean, Nakia Watson, Jalen Jenkins also solid as running backs, of course, pass catchers as well as is often the the
yeah, they
stature with
lost Dazon
Wazoo.
Stribling to the portal. I think he might have gotten dismissed, but I don't remember.
Defense though, like the defense of Wazoo is super underrated. If you recall last year, yeah, they went 7-6, lose to Oregon, it was only by 3. Lose to Oregon State by 14 in a
Yeah,
24-10 sloppy game. You only lost to Utah 21-17. Their defense was able to keep them in a lot of games, even when the offense wasn't humming. And we
yeah,
expect the offense to be a little bit better this season.
yeah. Defensively, I mean, Chell Smith Wade, great corner, one of if not,
Love him.
yeah, one of the best corners in the conference. They lost Dayon Henley. He got drafted by the Chargers. I was a really big fan of him last year, and so that'll be a big hole to replace.
Yeah,
But they do
I
have the
mean,
talent there.
yeah, Cal Smith Way is one of the more underrated players in the country. Once again, we
Yeah,
keep saying that
it's
he's someone that you could
yeah.
really see as like a top 40 NFL draft pick at corner.
Mhm.
Absolutely locked down. Jaden Hicks at safety is another really good up and coming player. Wazoo's secondary is really good, and we're gonna find some guys in the trenches that are gonna step up. Ron Stone is good. You see Maloney can make some plays. Anyone else on the defense stick out to you?
Uh, no, I think you named most of them.
Okay, let's talk schedule. The win total 6.5. It's a little on the lower side. Yeah, it is assuming bowl game, but at Colorado State versus Wisconsin versus Northern Colorado, there's your non-conference schedule. How many wins do you see the Cougs getting?
I think they'll improve from last year. 7, maybe 8. 8 would be a big year for them, but I think
Huge.
7. I'm willing to go 7 with them.
I like the 7 or 8 mark as well. I think that's very fair.
Yeah,
It's just they're a better team than people realize, and the unfortunate thing for them is they're in a very good conference, a loaded
yeah,
conference. There are no breaks in their schedule. You have Oregon State, UCLA, Arizona, Oregon, 4 straight games. ASU, Stanford, Cal, Colorado. Like those 4 games, maybe they could make that push there to maybe
it's
even the
yeah,
top
it's
25 bid or
definitely
something. If they're able to do that, would be nuts.
that.
But
Yeah, that would be wild. I think
at
it's definitely
Washington's
there for the
close.
taking. Them versus UCLA is a very fun matchup for me. I think they're pretty similar teams on paper.
Yeah, I would go 7 wins for Wazoo.
Yeah,
Cam Ward, DT Sheffield, Chow Smith Wade, excellent talents that
yeah.
y'all need
Cam
to get
Ward's got a lot
familiar
to
with.
play for. NFL might be knocking on the door. We'll see.
For sure. Well, that will do it for the team by team talk. Now we could talk about some awards and predictions and all that fun stuff. Offensive player of the year. I'm going Michael Penix Jr. I just think he's going to produce a whole lot. The yards are going to be coming endlessly.
Yeah, I think that's a. If it's not Caleb Williams, I think we both didn't pick Caleb Williams, even though he probably has the best chance of
Yeah.
being the best quarterback in the country. But yeah, I think Penix is there. For me, I think this is the year, man. Bo Nix, he's having fun. I think he's gonna have a phenomenal season.
Mhm.
And he did last year, but I think he's really gonna step it up, be maybe the best quarterback in the conference, best quarterback in the country, maybe. He's definitely got a shot. And
Yeah.
I think he wins offensive player of the year.
So both of us fading Caleb Williams there. I mean, it's more so because
Voter fatigue, yeah.
well, that, but also just he could go nuts, but if SC only wins 9
That
games,
too.
like
Yeah.
he's probably not going to do it. And I think we both said 9 wins for SC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Defense player of the year, I'm going Cole Bishop, safety at Utah.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. He's in for a monster year. He's gonna anchor that defense. And Utah's defenses, they're always pretty solid. So can't go wrong there. I'm gonna go with Braylon Trice. He had a monster year last year, and I think he's gonna follow it up this year. 10 sacks last season. He's got a great chance to improve on that maybe at Washington. I mean, he just keeps getting better, and if ZTF can get better, especially, I think that's going to open up a lot more opportunities for Braylon Trace.
Your coach of the year.
My coach of the year, I think it was pretty obvious if you listen to the Oregon State one, but I think Jonathan Smith wins that. He's, I think he's been the best coach in the Pac-12 other than Kyle Whittingham for a while, and I think this year with DJ Uiagalelei, if they can really put something special together, which it looks like they have the pieces to do, I think he's the coach of the year without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm switching my pick there. On the
Yeah,
document, I had Kenny Dillingham. If he could get to like a 6-7 win mark and kind of surprise people into that. But I'm going to go Jonathan Smith. I think just how you and I were talking up Oregon State during their segment, it's hard to kind of fade Jonathan Smith, and he's going to get a lot of respect. And we were talking about him as maybe the next hot name in the sport. So I'll go Jonathan Smith as well. Pac-12 championship predictions. I'm even going to take it a step further and change that as well. I'll go Washington beating Oregon State in the Pac-12 championship. Why not? Just bring me all the chaos.
yeah. Yeah, I have Oregon State making it 2, but I'm gonna go Utah beating them in the finals. Three-peat to
Okay.
close out the Pac-12.
Okay, let's go some hot take bold predictions. Many might assume that Oregon State making the Pac-12 championship game is a bit of a hot take, but we'll give 3 each. What's your first?
I think Bo Nix goes first round in the NFL draft. If
Okay.
that counts as a hot take, I think he's gonna have a great year. I had him as my offensive player of the year, and I think he has a skill set that's gonna be coveted by NFL teams if they can get past his Auburn times.
Maybe more down the bold prediction route there. My first hot take will be I talked about a bunch. TJ Harden, I think he outproduces Carson Steele this upcoming season. I think they'll
Yeah, in
both be
terms
very good players. I just think Harden's gonna put up more yards.
yeah, I can see that happening. In terms of teams, I think this also doesn't really count, but I think Colorado struggles. I just don't really see it there year one. What happened last year with USC, I think is going to happen with them times 20. The defense isn't exactly up to par. Their corners don't look like they can hold up against the receiver talent in this conference. And I just don't really see the vision there. I think it's definitely gonna be an experience for Dion and company.
Charles Smith Wade, when he enters the NFL draft, he will be a first round pick.
Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna say it's impossible. He's got the talent. Yeah, he's got the talent. I think DJ Uyagale has a strong season. Possibly gets himself into that day 2, day 1 draft conversation. I was a bit of a defender when he was at Clemson. You know, the talent was just it was always there. Like last year against Wake Forest, I mean, that was one of the better quarterback performances of any player in the country, I would say. And under Jonathan Smith, a lot of his mistakes are gonna be able to be covered up, and he's just gonna, if he can do his job, which I think he can do. I think he's matured, come along as a passer. I think he can really put together a good season at Oregon State.
All right, I'm trying to figure out what I should do for this last one. Like I have a thought that would be just hilarious, but I don't know if I want to do it.
May as well.
Dude, but I don't know. Fine. But I don't know. Cam Ward, Sam Jackson, and Roma Dunze combined for multiple Heisman votes.
What the okay. Yeah,
All they need between the three of them is 2 votes, and I win.
Cam,
I combined 2 votes between those 3 guys, and I win. I told you I shouldn't have said it.
That's a bold
take. It's a funny thought. Like when you were talking about your second one, when you were talking about your second hot take bold prediction, I just thought of it. I just laughed.
I can't even think of one after that. I think Cal leads the conference in rushing yards combined.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I think Jaden Ott, obviously, we saw what happened last year when they got him going. Isaiah Fonts is a capable bell cow. Byron Cardwell, change of pace back, and they added a couple other guys in the portal that can carry the ball. Plus the addition of Sam Jackson, can't go without mention. He's a great runner. So between all the pieces they added and Ott, who they retained, I think they probably have a good chance at putting up a lot of rushing yards.
I'll finish the hot takes bold predictions off with the Pac-12 still has 9 committed members in the next 3 days.
This is the mystery team. You don't think the mystery team is going to get announced?
Oh, you want to talk about the mystery team? I think the mystery team is Wazoo. I think the mystery Big 12 team is Wazoo.
I don't.
I
was trying to put it together last night. I was just sitting there like. They said it's not a
4-corner school.
Yeah, not a 4-corner system.
I don't think Washington or Oregon is very surprising. I don't think they fall into the surprising mold. UCLA and SC are gone. Stanford and Cal, Big 12 doesn't make sense. You're down to Oregon State and Washington State. And then Oregon State just today filed a release that they're committed to the future of the Pac-12. Just points to Wazoo, and Wazoo's where I was leaning.
Process of elimination. I think Arizona is Big 12 bound eventually. But
I do as well. I think them and ASU are a package deal. Yeah. This was inevitable that we got to this conversation.
Yeah, I thought it was Arizona until the 4 corners thing, but Washington State they would be a fun Big 12 team. I could see that
Yeah,
happening.
instantly when the Four Corners tweet came out, I was like, okay, the surprise team
Yeah.
I think is going to be Wazoo. And then by process of elimination and the Oregon State released today, we're recording this on July 28th. I think Wazoo's the surprise Big 12 team. I think that they would be excellent for that conference. And I'll end this by saying I kind of hate this stuff. I really like the I like regionalized conferences and rivalries, but I guess we're done with that, and we'll return to this way in like 2050 when people realize this
It's a shame, punishing the Pac-12 for being too good. It's just really, if this is what it's come down to.
They hate the Pac-12 till they realize they're too good.
They hate competitive football.
Hate competitive balance. Hate being too NFL like with parity and coin flip games year to year, like the MAC. What can you say, man?
A team from Utah going into SoCal, beating them. It's just
the Pac-12. It's a fun watch. Y'all have fun watching it this season. We can't thank y'all enough for listening to our preview. Again, please make sure to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating, good review, help spread the word about our podcast and College Football Preview Magazine. Man, $9.99, best deal on the market. Why go spend $10 at Barbie or Oppenheimer plus the $10 when you could just buy $10 worth of 368 pages of incredible college football content, team previews, equally ran about each team, quantity, quality, 20-plus player interviews, NIL for good, a story on Aussie punters. It's the best. Buy it, read it. We'll catch you on our next preview. Thank y'all. Can't wait for college football.